Good morning. Welcome to Viewpoint, your program of personalities, politicians, and perspectives. Happily, we can leave the politicians out, so we're going to have a good program this morning. We'll just use the personalities and perspectives. Speaking of perspectives, for the benefit of both of you listeners out there, one of you may have gone to the back room or the kitchen or somewhere and missed my comments a week or so ago about an experience I had at an oral surgeon. And I'm so appreciative of what Dr. Ogletree did that I want to tell you about it again. I'm going to repeat the story. The doctor noted the cap I had thrown on a chair in his corner, and it had World War II insignia on it. And he asked me a question about my service and so forth. And as he asked me more questions and stuck his fat fingers in my mouth so I couldn't answer, we went on with our business, and he asked me a couple of questions. In any event, the bottom line is, we were all through, and I was very satisfied. And he didn't hurt me a whole lot. And no, seriously, his nurse came to me with an invoice and presented it to me. It was a zero balance. And I asked, and she says, doctor wants to do that for a World War II veteran. And I tell you again, now that's a week or so ago, I sit here and I kind of tear up a little bit when I think about that. I really appreciated what Dr. Tom Ogletree did. And, you know, you're supposed to put something back on the bar besides your elbow, folks. So I got to thinking about how to respond to that very, very, very nice gesture. And I've made a contribution to the Wounded Warriors in his honor. So that's just a comment, the suggestion to you. If somebody does something nice for you and you feel like you want to recognize that, take your favorite charity. Wounded Warriors happens to be one of mine. Use your favorite charity and donate some money in the honor of somebody who you want to honor. So I just pass that on for what it's worth. Now, let's get down to some other serious business. We have two very nice people with us this morning whom I respect very much down through the years. Well, I don't want to make it too many years. So, Judith K., go ahead and introduce our nice guest this morning.
You're a bit younger than we are, Bill.
I noted that, damn it.
Oh, I could use that. Thank you, Jim. We've only been out here how many years, and I still don't realize we have to have a microphone. My voice just doesn't carry like it used to.
It's a nice voice, though.
Oofta. Well, we have two fine people from Lincoln College.
You bet.
And that's a big part of our community. And we're awfully happy that you could be with us today. We're 2 days from the big birthday. I wonder what the man, Mr. Abraham, would have to say about today's goings on. You know, I was listening this morning to the news, and they were talking, of course, about Chicago, and they were talking, of course, about the impeachment and so forth. And because you were going to be with us today, I thought, I'll have to ask them how they think Abraham would feel about this craziness that we have going on.
He'd say, Mr. Keller, what are you doing telling your kids about me?
Oh.
Actually, that's exactly how I think he would respond. I think Abraham Lincoln would feel a little bit odd that so much attention is being paid to him. I mean, after all, here's a guy of humility who didn't really feel that a lot of pomp and circumstance should be ever made over him. So I don't think he would, first of all, really revel in all the attention. But to the point of what he would think about today, that's a very dangerous question. I would like to be positive and think that he has felt that the American experiment has continued. So we'll go with that one.
I think that's
we're
appropriate.
Still living, that the
well,
country,
hopefully
the
it will
Republic
continue.
Yes, and hopefully it will. But certainly I think that there is a lot that we could still learn from Lincoln, which we could get very much into if you wanted to. But that's I think that there would probably be some head scratching in his mind to think what happened to our country that was supposed to be united after a civil war.
He was known, of course, as Honest Abe.
Yeah.
and we should try to emulate that quality much more than we do. Ron Keller is is professor at Lincoln College, and he knows all these facts and factoids.
I make it all up, Judy. Thank you.
Do you?
Yes.
Well, you do a nice job.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I've known you for quite a while now, and I believe every word you say.
That's your first mistake.
Seriously.
And with him, let me just do this. May I, please?
Shut up, Bill.
And thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And with him
She
is
owns
Olivia.
51% of the show. I have to defer to her.
I understand.
We have Olivia Partlow, and she is the director at the museum. And you might want to bear that museum in mind as we approach Abraham's birthday in 2 days only. Oh my, time flies. And Olivia, you have a nice, fun job there. I envy you.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. I think the best thing about working at a small museum is you get to do a little bit of everything. So there's the marketing, but then actually working with the artifacts and research and tours with the public. I think that's the best thing about it.
Now, one thing that you mentioned off air, just a little bit ago, was about the Middletown flag. I don't know that story. Could you share that with us?
Oh, we want to talk a lot about that, don't we, Olivia? Yeah, go right ahead there.
So that actually ties in with Lincoln's birthday. The Middletown flag will be unveiled on Lincoln's birthday, February 12th. So the history of the Middletown flag dates back to 1860. So the ladies of Middletown, now this is a time when women couldn't vote or really take part in politics very much except for supporting their favorite candidates. So the ladies of Middletown, they hand sewed this huge, it's about 110 inches long wool flag.
Wool?
It's
even?
wool, yes.
Oofta.
So they made it in anticipation for an August 8th, 1860 campaign rally, a Wide Awakes rally, which is what Lincoln's followers were called, in Springfield, Illinois. And so the thought was that the flag would just decorate the Logan County Wide Awakes parade float, which it did. But after the parade, it was rolled up and put into a horse stable on the state fairgrounds. And then a little while later, some men were coming around to get a buggy ready for Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln was going to make a speech on the other side of the fairgrounds and had to make his way through the crowds. And they saw this flag and they thought it would just be the perfect thing to decorate his carriage. So it was sat on or laid across his seat, and then when he went across the fairgrounds, it was actually draped over his shoulders as well. And then it was afterwards just passed down through descendants until we were very lucky to have it at the museum.
You are indeed. Now, how in the world did somebody decide that they would give this to you, or what's the story? How did it get to be yours?
That was a little before my time, so Ron might have a better.
And I'm not sure of the full story either, actually, but it passed back down to the Middletown. Since the Middletown ladies had made it, apparently it belonged then to the Middletown Society, Middletown Club, somewhere in Middletown. And then eventually it was donated from the Middletown Ladies Society to Lincoln Heritage Museum because, and I don't even know when, actually, it was before my time.
It's been quite a while.
As well. It's been quite a while.
Yes.
So that was before I was even director, but Lincoln Heritage Museum was always a place where you can store items more than in someone's basement, and it needed to be something that was enjoyed and appreciated and cared for and conserved, and hopefully one day, I'm sure they hoped, displayed properly. And that's now finally, I think we're living, as Olivia said, right? We're finally carrying out this and showcasing this flag for what it needed to be back when in Lincoln's time for the first time.
Now, you said it was wool, right?
Well, they didn't have any synthetics then.
No, but did the moths ever get to it?
Yeah, there was definitely some damage, but it is now fully restored. There were some holes and things like that, but this summer it was restored in Indiana by a conservation company there. So, and then today, actually, it is going to be put in the big case. Jason Hoffman from Jason Hoffman Studios, he made a absolutely gorgeous case, a wooden case that the flag will be stored on in forever.
So there will be protected.
Yes.
I'd like to make
the
a side
moths are
comment.
thwarted
then.
Yes, it is moth-proof.
Mrs. Busby, if I may, and I have to ask permission because she owns the show, you know. In any event, we're sitting here talking with history people. History, if you're a kid in high school or even in college, and you have a so-so professor who sits up there and drones about February 12th, so-and-so, Abe Lincoln was born, and then he moves on to the next thing, and it's all very humdrum and very dry. A good history teacher and or professor can make history come alive. And I first witnessed that with a Lincoln College teacher, Anna Lee Bailoff. She was a magnificent teacher.
That goes back a couple years.
Well, yeah, back to the 40s. In any event, she made history come alive. And a good teacher such as yourself, and I'm not trying to stroke you here in front of God and everybody, Ron, but Ron's one of our most popular professors up there by the students' vote because he does make his classes interesting. Number one, he knows whereof he speaks. Tell us a little bit about your educational background, Mr. Keller.
So I from Southern Illinois, so I went to a small little community college because that's all we could afford growing up on the farm, Olney Central College. But that was a very formative experience for me because I really was I fell in love with the 2-year college experience, and then I decided when I was at my 2-year community college I wanted to teach at a 2-year college someday, which when I came to Lincoln College 20 years ago, it was primarily a 2-year college, of course. Went on to Eastern Illinois University, earned my bachelor's, my master's from Eastern. Did take some coursework at the University of Virginia and Virginia Commonwealth University, but my master's and bachelor's are both from EIU in Charleston. So taught for a few years in the public school system before I got the job at Lincoln College.
Now, what grade?
You and Tim Butler kind of exchange your
yes, we do.
EIU
Yeah,
loyalties.
we proudly wear the blue and the gray of EIU. So yes, yeah.
All I can tell you is, and I mean this sincerely, I kind of hang around the college once in a while, and when I'm out there, I talk to our kids, and I ask them who some of their professors is. And Joe Baker's name used to come up a lot before he retired.
Wonderful man.
Ron Keller's name came up a lot then and today. So it tells you if the kids remember the name of the professor, somebody's making a mark somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, there are a lot of, and I'm just a cog in the wheel. There are a lot of great people.
We have an excellent staff. We really do.
We really have very dedicated.
We have a caring professional staff.
Absolutely, and I think that's become very apparent this time period during the COVID, because I think it's really tested all of us, from the students to the faculty to the staff to the administration, and trying to adapt, but also try to still live out our mission, right, of being a college that's more of a family, that you have person-to-person contact. It's very difficult, of course, in the pandemic to still have that, but I think we've tried to adjust as well as we possibly can. I think it's been an adjustment for all of us.
I think our administration and his staff have done a fine job. I want to get to Ms. Partlow in a minute, but I want to ask you a question about this pandemic. I don't think it has as much impact on kids at a college level as it does at the elementary level. I'm talking lower elementary level. How's this pandemic teaching working out, Ron?
Yeah, so I would probably say I think that the effect on students at the collegiate level is different. I don't know if it's better or worse or less or greater, but it's different. I mean, I think that so many of these young people are going through a trial in their life. Many of them come from academic environments back home or situations back home that are test them anyway. So then you add on a new dynamic of learning. It becomes very, very difficult. And many of them, which is I think one of the reasons why Lincoln College succeeds, is because in the world of online learning, we're going to online learning more and more. There's still this need for face-to-face interaction, face-to-face education, which has, and again, that's become the difficult part, is trying to keep people safe. And I like you, I applaud the administration for trying to hit that balance, which is it's a difficult balance of trying to maintain public safety and the safety and the welfare of our students, but also to try to have a learning environment which tries to capture picture as much as what we had. So the hybrid model tries to sort of hit both, where we see them 1 or 2 times a week and the rest is online. So at least we can have this face-to-face interaction. Social distance and mask, of course, included.
648. Go ahead, Judith K.
Were you able to maintain your basketball schedule with the pandemic?
That got moved. So now finally there's some sports now in the spring. NAIA conference has allowed that to continue. So at least we're having some semblance of a season.
And we got some pretty good kids on that cardboard, too.
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
648-5510. Our guest this morning, Miss Olivia Partlow, representing Lincoln College's Heritage Museum, and Mr. Ron Keller, Professor Ron Keller, who tells our kid a little bit about Abe and all the other presidents, besides a lot of other history things. Miss Partlow, tell us about your background, please, before you came to, we were happy enough to get you on our staff.
Sure. Well, I went to school at SIU Carbondale in Southern Illinois. Got my bachelor's in history and political science, and I'm currently getting my master's here at Lincoln College, actually, for organizational leadership. Prior to my position now, I was the assistant director of the museum.
Well, we're happy to have you aboard. Tell us a little bit about what somebody might see. Somebody driving from Carbondale to Rockford, they say, someone stop that museum. What will they see?
Well, we focus mostly on what we like to say the unbearded Lincoln. So this would be Lincoln prior to about 1861 is when he grew his beard after he won the presidency. So we focus on him in Illinois and kind of what made him who he was as a president. So we focus on his character traits and how his experiences as a youth shaped him to the great president that we all know today. Mm-hmm. And so some of the items we have are some furniture from the Lincoln home in Springfield. We have a desk that he learned on in New Salem, which is pretty neat. Really cool items that I'm excited about are our 2 1860 Wide Awake campaign banners. And so these have just been moved next to the Middletown flag. So as of February 12th, we will have a new 1860 campaign exhibit area. And so the special thing about those banners in connection with the Middletown flag is that they were actually at the same Wide Awakes parade that the Middletown flag was debuted. Sure. And Abraham Lincoln had it across his shoulders. They were also used in a few other rallies around central Illinois, and they were created actually here in Atlanta, Illinois by a local dentist and his nephew, who was the leader of the Atlanta Wide Awakes.
I should think it would give your heart such a flutter when you are able to not only see but touch something that was really a part of Abraham Lincoln. Isn't that part of the museum for you and the students?
Oh, absolutely. It's just so neat to be so close to history and just know that those historic places where the artifacts come from are where we are right now. I mean, this is where Abraham Lincoln traveled the 8th Judicial Circuit, you know, just a few hundred and so years ago.
And part of the part of that as well is the reason for our new special exhibit, which I don't know, you may ask about, or Olivia is going to talk about, so I'm sorry to preempt, but we have special exhibits every year, and we've teamed together for a special exhibit featuring the letters of the Hawes family from Atlanta. Jim and Joanne Hawes had donated some letters, to the original letters, to the Lincoln Heritage Museum several years ago, and our Corps of volunteers and staff have been pouring through the letters, transcribing them, and so next year, well, actually, no, this year, next
February 12th.
February 12th is the opening of this new exhibit, Our Cause is Just, which features the letters of Henry and George Hawes, who were brothers in the Civil War, as well as their half-brother James Ewing, who wrote back and forth to the Hawes family, who lived in Eminence Township. Are we in Eminence Township right now? We're pretty close, aren't we?
You're close up there.
Atlanta Township, so Eminence, I think, is pretty close, though. So in this general area, within a mile or two, the Hawes family, and they're beautiful letters, just very touching, but also very realistic about the horrors of war. There are letters that talk about Abraham Lincoln, and they talk about the re-election of Lincoln in 1864 and the grief that followed with the assassination and the funeral train coming through. Just very personal letters that really tell a very touching, but also a very just a real story of people who were separated by the Civil War in the 1860s from here.
But reading and hearing of those letters that are, as you suggest, so very personal, that gives you direct feeling. The great series, oh my gosh, I've gone blank on the fellow who does such great...
Ken Burns?
Ken Burns, yeah. Thank you very much, sir. See, man's clairvoyant. He can read my mind. The one he did on the Civil War was just riveting.
Yes, it was.
Just riveting. And you sit there and look at that and kind of live through it, and you think, my God, how did those folks live? Mm-hmm. And, of course, so many thousand of them didn't. But Ken Burns is a remarkable videographer.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Historian.
Yes.
He would have been a great guy for Ron Keller to sit and talk to.
Yes.
Well, I would have been sitting at his feet, and I wouldn't have anything to share because he is very gifted and very knowledgeable.
Yeah, his thing on baseball, all of the things he did, each and every one of them.
Yes.
The old pictures that they drew.
Yes.
But those pictures of the Civil War, boy, they riveted you. Mm-hmm. And you have to stop and think, we have medics in all wars. All wars are pretty damn horrible, yeah. I'll tell you that.
And that's why I think it's so, to me, that was when we received these letters, and Olivia could certainly share, but the letters themselves are graphic, but also, again, they're touching. But when we saw the picture, we got pictures of George and Henry Hawes. There's something about a photograph of individuals that really just becomes, very real, because you can put faces with names and with stories. You can almost look at the picture and hear this guy talk or feel what he's going through. And so that's, I think, really the cream of the crop for this exhibit, is knowing that we have some of these gorgeous photographs of some of these people.
Speaking of cream of the crop, Miss Partlow, we have another edition upstairs as part of our museum, a little tour. Tell us about that. That's the conception of that was quite well conceived and carried out. So go ahead, Miss Partlow. Tell us about that part of the museum.
Sure. The immersion tour is our upstairs tour. It's really neat. I'll normally tell people, we have this cool audio-visual tour, and they kind of aren't as excited. They think they're just going to be watching a movie upstairs, but it's so much more than that. So the immersion tour, it's truly immersive. You'll go from room to room in our upstairs. It's almost like a maze up there, but each room is a different portion of Lincoln's life, and so you'll have like a recreated scene, and then the Lincoln and also people that he knew will speak to you, and things will light up. And I think one of the really, really unique things about this is that it's not just things that we came up with to say. These are actual quotes from Lincoln and the people who knew him that are telling the story of his life.
I think that's one of the things that I like about living here, is that so many people, like the Hawes family, go back to a real relationship with the man.
Oh, definitely. It's very neat.
You've gotten down through the years several donations of things that were pertinent, haven't you? And bless their hearts, each and every one who shared with the museum, so that you, in turn, can share with the rest of us.
Oh, by the way, I don't think it'd be untoward, if I may. February 12th is just around the corner. You might want to say happy birthday to old Abe by sending a donation in his honor to the Lincoln College Museum. We would accept that, wouldn't we? And say, by the way, were we supposed to have a commercial? Yes, come right. Speaking of money, go right ahead, Mr. H. And we're right back live in the studios here at WLCN, high on the County Road 2250. Our guests this morning on Viewpoint are Miss Olivia Partlow and Mr. Ron Keller, esteemed guests from our Lincoln College staff. Olivia is with our very nice museum, and if you haven't done it, don't go out today. It's pretty nasty, but pick a nice day and go see that nice museum. And a friend for whom I have a great respect in fact, go to Ron Keller, professor of history. I have to genuflect when I pass him by.
Oh, Bill, you laid on too thick. You're great.
No, Ron's one of our popular. I started to say something, but I'm going to withdraw that. I think all of our instructors up there are kids like, because each and every one of our instructors up there at Lincoln College are dedicated to doing a good job for our kids. And so any kid who goes to Lincoln College gets the benefit of people who care. And I guess that's the best way to put it.
Agreed. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we appreciate Ron and Olivia being with us today. February 12th. An old fella with a stovepipe and a long tailcoat, Mr. Abraham Lincoln. By the way, Ron, I was just given, not just, I'm getting around, Bonnie Keys gave me a very nice book. It's a novel about Abe Lincoln. And I'm embarrassed to sit here in front of this microphone and tell you, I can't tell you the title of the book right now. I've got my nose about halfway through it. The author has intertwined Abe Lincoln's life and stories into a novel form, and I made a note to give it to you when I get done with it, so that you have to give it back because the author dedicated it to me.
Oh, bless you. Okay, I'll be interested in looking at it. Yeah,
but there are tons of books out there and pamphlets and historical about Abe, many of whom you just want to discount because they're somebody else's theory. You have to get down to somebody like Mr. Keller, who's studied Abraham Lincoln and is able to recount histories to his students so it becomes interesting. So, Olivia and Ron, we appreciate you being with us today. Olivia, you're next up on the question list. We were talked about our secondary museum piece, which is our tour on the second floor there. Animated. You move from room to room, and the lights change, and the sound changes. I find it a very, very interesting investment of time. You come out of there with a different feeling.
Absolutely. It's, like you said, it is a little bit of a time investment. It is an hour and 15 minutes long, but it's absolutely worth it. I'll have guests sometimes, they hear the length and they're a little skeptical, but then they'll come out of it, sometimes even moved to tears. It really is just a truly unique experience and a really moving experience. I didn't mention before, but another unique part of the tour is it actually starts at Ford's Theater, which seems a bit odd. Why would we start at the end of Lincoln's life? But it takes place then in the 9 hours in between Lincoln being shot and him actually dying. He didn't die right there at Ford's Theater. It wasn't until the morning afterward. So the tour is our interpretation of what could have been going on in his mind during those 9 hours, kind of like a life review that you'll see in movies.
Maybe it would be helpful if you'd give the directions geographically to getting to the museum at the college, and also the hours and so forth, because I think maybe especially right now, since his birthday is coming up in 2 days, people might want to take advantage of this. And also an age appropriateness, like for instance, I have a little great-grandson here in town. He's in 2nd grade, and I'm sure that they're getting some historical facts in 2nd grade even on Abraham Lincoln now that his birthday is here. And wouldn't a child that age be able to appreciate it as well?
Definitely. They might not appreciate the content as much as us adults, but it's really interactive up there. So that everything can be touched. The kids can, there's a courthouse where they can get behind the desk and pretend like they're a judge. So it's definitely kid-friendly. And we also have on our first floor, we have some scavenger hunts to keep the kids occupied. And also we'll sometimes bring out 19th century games that would have been played in Lincoln's time.
Well, that'd be more impressive for a 2nd grader than just pointing to a chair and say, Abe Lincoln sat there.
Yeah, yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, we try to make it fun for the kids, because, being on a college campus, we do want to, inspire them to love history, even if they're not in college yet.
And they're not ever too young to be exposed to these things. In fact, sometimes I think the younger you can catch them, the more impressionable they are, of course. And they should learn to appreciate history and where we came from.
Absolutely. One of my favorite memories, Lincoln memories, growing up was at the Lincoln home. And I think we talked about it a little bit. You can touch the things that he did. And I still remember, going down that staircase and the banister in the home that's still original that Lincoln would have put his hand on every single day. And that memory, I think it really stands out to me as one of, the most impactful moments and made me really appreciate history. And then also just the place that I grew up. It's not everywhere in the United States where you're so immersed in history.
Mentioning places of historical significance here in Logan County, I move over to Mount Pulaski. Vinegar Hill is what I still call it from the old days. That Mount Pulaski courthouse. Mm-hmm. Standing there in that courtroom kind of gives you that feeling that you just mentioned. Being where Lincoln stood and practiced law. That's kind of a very impressive thing to do. By the way, those folks over there in Vinegar Hill have done a wonderful job of maintaining that Mount Pulaski courthouse, and that's another place you can go. Don't go right now; it's too cold. I don't want to slip and fall and sue them. No, seriously, when the weather's right, if you haven't been to Mount Pulaski, take a few minutes and run over there and spend some time in that courthouse. They also have a docent there who will tell you about it if you ask any questions. So kudos to those folks over there on the hill.
You betcha.
Well, thank you for that. I was afraid to die. Mike was going to die for a minute.
Now, what are your hours? Did you tell us that?
Yes, we are open Tuesday through Fridays, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., and Saturdays, 1 to 4 p.m. Our last immersion tour, like I said, it is a little longer. You'll want to get here before 2:45 to get the last tour.
Okay. Well, people should take advantage of that and bring your kids, expose them to this. If they're never exposed to it, they never learn to appreciate it.
And one of the great things, if I would add, that our museum does, which Olivia is proud of, and I know I am too, is that not only do we impart history, but also character lessons. And this is one of the things that through our vision of the museum, the way we ever designed it, we wanted it to be a place that people leave thinking about how to live their life differently. And I think that's a very cool mission for a museum to have, is not just like, okay, I know more about history, but also I'm really searching my own life, my own soul, how I live, using the example of Abraham Lincoln, how can I live my life differently? Using character lessons like integrity and honesty, as you mentioned, and humility and civility, perseverance, courage, all those. And so I think that's an important mission that our museum has that a lot of museums don't have.
What would be your favorite story, Ron, that encompasses those values you were just enumerating?
Oh,
it's a big question.
Yes, a very big question, because if I answered now, then I would have something different 5 minutes from now.
Don't tell us that story about walking and returning the book.
Yes, even though that is apparently
Everybody
true.
knows that,
yeah, and it's because there are so many stories of Lincoln's life that are embellished. Even his own lifetime, people would come to him and say, I've heard about this, and Lincoln say, yeah, I've heard about that too, but it never happened. So,
I imagine there's that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess one that just comes to mind right now is, which it's interesting how Lincoln received people, and in the age of, we all see I don't want to get political because, as you said, we're not going to in this show, but when you see the barricades and the fences now erected around the Capitol, it just reminds me of how in Lincoln's time, in the middle of a Civil War, how people could come and just from anywhere, and if they were willing to wait long enough, they could actually see the President of the United States. They would be entered into the door, they would be sent upstairs to the room adjacent to Lincoln's office, sit there, and if next in line, they would come in, and there's the President of the United States, and you can say whatever you have to say. Now, most of them were seeking a job, let's be honest, but still, many of them, Lincoln took the time in the middle of a war to take he called his public opinion baths, so he could be still in touch with the common person. Even though he was the chief magistrate of the country, he also wanted to be someone who was receptive and responsible and responsive to the citizens of the country, wherever they were from.
Wouldn't it be nice to have politicians, party politics notwithstanding, party politics not a part of the conversation at all, wouldn't it be nice to have politicians who were of the same ilk as old Abe?
Yeah, absolutely. And there are some. Yeah, there are some. And certainly I don't want to sit here and say that the politicians today don't represent that, because I think many of them do. But certainly many more could live the example of Lincoln. It's interesting how people use it. Lincoln comes off the lips of about every politician, but do they really walk the walk and instead of just talking the talk? But yeah.
Olivia, what got you involved in history, because that's part of your profession now, history?
Sure. I think it was just always the most interesting thing to me when I thought of what I wanted to do, to study in college, but then also afterwards, for a career. It's just nothing else seemed very interesting. So that's about how I landed here.
Well, you really got a good piece of luck there.
Absolutely.
Going into a profession that dovetails so nicely with your enjoyment.
Yeah, I consider myself lucky. I'm sure Ron does as well.
Well, if we had, I would have retired sooner from this position and gone to full-time teaching had I known people would follow me like Olivia. I mean, I just keep me out the door and let her. She's done a great job as director. She really is.
Olivia, did you say SIU was in your background?
Yes, I'm a Saluki.
Good. Well, that's pretty good. That's a good background. Were you on campus when a lady who was an English teacher, I think Jean Kittrell? Did that name register with you at all?
That doesn't sound familiar, but I actually didn't have to take a whole lot of English classes, so she could have been there.
I only met her because she was some kind of piano player. We met her years ago at jazz gigs, and my goodness, she could take those 88s and turn them into 166 in a hurry. Great school down there, the Salukis. Any incidents that's occurred to you that's been unusual during your time here, Miss Partlow?
Well, the pandemic was very unusual. We've actually had to close several times in the past year, just along with the college's safety practices, and then also, state mandated closures. So we just reopened last month. So I'm really excited to get more people in. We've had a low visitation year, but I think people are itching to do something. So it's the time, February 12th, like we keep repeating. That's when our new exhibit, Our Cause is Just, the Hawes in the Civil War, as well as the Middletown flag gets unveiled. So everyone should head out on then, and we can forget about all these temporary closures and just enjoy history.
And isn't it nice to have an administration who has your back?
Absolutely. The Lincoln College administration has been so supportive and helpful throughout this whole situation.
I think of the job that comes out of that administrative office as our President Gerlach and his assistants. Juggling, it's like juggling a football and a basketball at the same time. Day by day, they're not sure what's on the horizon with this COVID thing, and how you decide when you're going to have class and when you can't have class. It's a tremendous responsibility. You folks drive by on Keokuk Street, you drive by 300 Keokuk Street, and there's Lincoln College on your right or your left, depending upon your direction, and you probably don't give it much of a thought. The next time you drive by the college, think about the impact that the college has had down for many years on the lives of so many, and the careers of so many, and the success of so many. It's because you have people up there who are dedicated to doing what they're doing. And by the way, economically, Lincoln College and his sister college, Lincoln Christian University, tremendous economic impacts in our community.
Oh, yes.
Huge payrolls.
And I don't think that people realize sometimes the economic problems that face small colleges. I mean, McMurray College, of course, was one of many that had to close and shuttle their doors in the last few years. And it is, I think it's going to have some huge ripple effects on the economy of Jacksonville, even though there's a buyer, I think, what I am understanding, but it's not going to be someone who's going to turn it back into a college. So you're absolutely right. I think that these students that come to Lincoln Christian University and Lincoln College are part of us. They're part of our community. No matter how long they live here, 2 years, 4 years, if they go to a 4-year, if they go even take master's degree programs, maybe they're here longer, but they're part of us. They're part of our community. So we need to do all we can to recognize that and appreciate that and welcome them as much as we would welcome anybody who comes into our community.
Yeah, we're an inclusive group up there. By design. Yeah. Our administration has made that determination and working well. Working very well. But now, Ron, we're about ready to close up here. Do you have any thoughts that you'd like to drop on my lap before we depart?
I have so many thoughts in my head. I'm not sure I can share them on radio. But no, I appreciate this, and I still think we're a blessed country and a blessed people. And I've been pondering what you said, about giving back when your parting shots. I think should be going back to your opening line, and that's just to give back when we can and to who we can. And I think we're here to serve each other.
Thank you very much, Ron Keller. Miss Partlow.
I think I would just encourage.
I thought I would sleep at the switch.
Thought you were going to say a little more. I would just again encourage everyone to keep in mind of the museum. The Middletown flag has been such an amazing and long project, and it's finally coming to a head and really gone full circle, because I didn't mention, but local ladies are actually going to be the ones sewing, not the actual flag, but there's some fabric attached to it, and they're actually going to be the ones sewing it to the case. So the Middletown flag started with local Logan County women coming together to support Abraham Lincoln, hand sewing this amazing flag, and now today these Logan County women, one of them lives in Middletown actually, are coming together to finally put it, preserve it for future generations.
Posterity.
Definitely. I think it's just an amazing, amazing thing.
Thank you very much, Olivia. Our guest this morning, Olivia Partlow, representing Lincoln College Museum, and she can tell you a lot about it. I'd be happy to do that. Ron Keller, professor of history at Lincoln College. We appreciate you two young people giving your time this morning. We'll be very careful to get you back home, carefully. We have to get Mr. Keller back. He has students to take care of. So, thank you very much.
Pleasure being here.
And